Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another. Well, are you happy now? Are you happy now? Look where we are. Parrot Head Key International Airport, folks. It's back out. The layout is set up and ready for an airport update. And not to spoil anything, but we might have gone back in time just a little bit with this one, guys. And the reason for that being is because that's what I intended with this layout initially, is for it to be a retro kind of setup back to the early 2000s. And I have a lot of Herpa 1 to 500 airliners that sort of fit that era because many a moons ago, I did plan on doing a CVG retro layout with the Delta hub, hence why I have quite a few retro Delta models, but that never came into reality. It may one day. I still want to do it. It's just a matter of space, time, and money, as everything is when it comes to model aviation. But yeah, we have Parrot Head Key circa 2005 today. And without any further rambling, let's go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and start where there's the least amount of action, back here at Tidal Aviation, where we've got a Cessna Citation XL with a beautiful blue stripe on the otherwise just white Citation XL. This aircraft arrived in today from Wilmington, North Carolina, with a VIP on board, and it is scheduled to depart back out up north to the continental United States. Going to be heading to Greensboro, North Carolina. Over there, we've got a Sunbird Air Tours de Havilland Beaver. This aircraft taxiing out, of course, just for a scenic tour flight around Parrot Head Key, and it will head back here after the flight has completed. And here we've got the Southwest 737-700 in the Canyon Blue colors. This aircraft today arrived in from Dallas Love Field and will return to Dallas Love after the turn. Moving on, we'll go ahead and hit signature. If the camera will focus. There we go. We've got the private CRJ 200 today. This aircraft arrived in from Muscle Shoals, Alabama, has been pushed off to the side of the ramp. It will depart in 2 days out to Muscle Shoals, Alabama once again. And a lot of the Cessnas and DC-3s and such don't really have routes, so they're just sitting on the ramp. Not really going to go over those. But here we've got a copper or gold, however you want to look at it. We'll call it gold. Gold Cessna Skymaster. This aircraft arrived in from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we'll be making a flight out to this one's going to go to St. Petersburg, Clearwater today. And there we've got a Kitty Hawk, former Kitty Hawk cargo 727-200 freighter, now operated by Caletta Air Charters. This aircraft arrived in from Miami MIA on a just grocery run, dropping off groceries and essential supplies to the island of Parrot Head Key, and it will be making a flight off to it's gonna head all the way up to Detroit YP after all the cargo has been loaded on board. Now, rolling down runway 27 right, we have an airline that I don't believe I've ever featured in an airport update, like ever, that I've done. We've got the Northwest Airlines Airbus A319. This aircraft today arrived in from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and is currently on the departure roll out to Minneapolis, St. Paul. And skipped over some planes at the signature ramp. Let's head back here. We've got the Cessna Citation XL with the red stripe. This aircraft today is going to be heading out on a flight up to Allentown, Pennsylvania. Sorry if I'm a little slower with these routes. I'm kind of with the private jet ones today, admittedly. I'm coming up with them off the top of my head. I don't have these written down like PTS routes. So bear with me if I'm a little slower there. But moving on, the last aircraft on the signature ramp, we've got the U.S. Air Force 737-200. Today arrived in from Eglin Air Force Base, otherwise known as Destin VPS, on a training flight, and is just having some time to rest and enjoy the scenery here at Parrot Key before the crew departs back to Eglin Air Force Base. Taxiing in now, we've got the Delta Connection CRJ 200, operated by ASA in the special Salt Lake City livery. This aircraft today arrived in from Tampa, Florida, and will be making a flight off to Tampa once again after the quick turn has occurred. And moving on, also just arrived in, we have the Delta 737-800 in the Colors in Motion livery. This aircraft arrived in today from Cincinnati CVG, which at this time was still a Delta hub. Those who know. That's a shout out to some of the CVG spotters who I know watched the video. That's a reference only they would get. But we've got the 737-800 just arrived in from CVG. Will be making a flight off to Indianapolis, Indiana after the turn. And we've got the U.S. Airways Airbus A321 aircraft today arrived in from Charlotte CLT, and will be actually making a flight up to Philadelphia PHL in a matter of about a half an hour or so. The return bags are being loaded on. The LAV has just been completed, and the final bits of catering are being loaded up on the aircraft before the flight up to Philadelphia. Got an empty gate A4, that is where Southwest will park once they arrive. It's where Northwest actually departed from. We got an empty gate A3 where the Delta 737-800 will park. And next door, we've got at gate A2, we've got the Delta 737-200 and the Delta Express livery. They arrived in from Washington, D.C.A., and we'll be making a flight up to the New York LaGuardia, LGA, after the pushback is complete. It's just waiting for some GSE to get out of the way, and the Delta 737-800 to take its spot at the gate here. Then moving next door, we've got the biggest aircraft that's ever served PTS in its history. It just barely makes it in and out of here, but of course, by just barely, I mean it does safely make it. But regardless, we've got the Delta Airlines 767-300 in the, I believe they call this the Ron Allen livery. Most people do, or the interim colors, whatever you want to call it. Not an expert on the old Delta liveries as much as I probably should be, CVG being my hometown international airport and it being a Delta hub for so long. But rambling aside, we've got the, of course, mighty Delta 767-300. Back then, in these days of good old 2005, which is 20 years ago now, believe it or not, this aircraft arrived, or served daily, multiple flights a day from Atlanta, Georgia, to and from. And that is where this one came from today. Actually just arrived in a little bit ago. The last passengers are being offloaded, and the first of the bags in the front cargo hold are being unloaded after the flight from Atlanta, and it will return to Atlanta. much bigger than the typical 717 that serves PTS on this route. Um, and of course, yeah. So if you couldn't tell already, at this time, PTS or PTY rather, Parrot was kind of a Delta focused city. They have a sizable route network out of here, both with mainline and connection operations. Hence why there are so many Delta planes here. But we'll go ahead and move on to the regional ramp, where we've got first a Delta Connection CRJ 200 in the SkyWest colors. This aircraft arrived in today from Orlando MCO and will return to Orlando MCO. Delta Connection CRJ 700, operated by ASA in the Colors in Motion livery. Aircraft arrived in from Miami MIA and will be making a return to Miami. And just taking the runway now on 27 right, we've got the Delta Connection CRJ 200, also in the SkyWest colors. Aircraft arrived in today from Tallahassee, Florida, and is actually on the return, not to Tallahassee, but up to Pensacola, so still heading up to Northwest Florida. And last but not least, on runway 27 left, we've got the U.S. Airways Express Dash 8-100 today. This aircraft arrived in from Fort Lauderdale and is actually just making a quick, almost like a milk run service. Going to be heading over to Key West today on about a 15-minute flight. And with that, that'll do it for this update of Parrot Head Key. I hope you all enjoyed this one, especially since I haven't brought it out in a while. And with it being a lot of these models, at least the retro ones, I've never showed on this channel. And Northwest over there being an airline that I've never featured on this channel. A319s, of course I have, but in the Northwest colors, and just the airline in general, I guess what I'm trying to say. It's a new one for me. I'm not used to it, but I guess that's partially because they just weren't around when I started my aviation passion in general. That was more of a, when I was a little guy, they went away. They merged with Delta, so I never really got to experience Northwest, hence why I don't really have a lot of their models or know a lot about them. But like I said, as per usual, with all that rambling aside, thank you all very much for watching. I'm glad I could get this one out for you guys. I know you've been asking for it for a while. And yeah, if you want to see more retro updates like this in the future, be sure to let me know. And with all that being said, I will see you all in the next video. Have a good day, y'all.